Good evening, joyful Christian Mystic Hermit. There's some things I don't know. I'd read different things in some videos that then I didn't publish the videos. So I want to repeat, it might be a repeat, but this was back years ago when I was a Lutheran. I've been many different Protestant denominations because I would grow and learn and then come to a point where there was no more to grow really. And God, all the while, then the last 10 to 11 years that I was Protestant, God kept bringing me into the Catholic Church bit by bit by bit, which I kept resisting. But God, there were reasons why, and I'm understanding them. I've mentioned some. One was to understand a mystic life, mysticism. I had no means of knowing as a Protestant any of what my issues were, and I couldn't find ministers who knew anything of it, or a district superintendent, or books. The closest I came was, C.S. Lewis seemed very spiritual to me, but I read all of his books, and then what? Where do I go? And Scripture, of course, every time you read it, you gain more and more from it. So I had the Bible, but no one to explain any of the unusual experiences or how God was utilizing me, speaking with me, and miracles that would happen, forewarning me, taking care of me. He so took care of me. But he did before. I had experiences before my divorce, before the accident. And so I realized I was just like that. Strange. And I felt I wanted to be normal. I didn't understand. So God knew where I would find understanding and help. And that was the Catholic Church, the spiritual aspects, the priests who knew about such things, but most of them couldn't handle it then. They're not expecting just a nothing person to come along. Maybe they've read about things like that in different experiences, but weren't used to it in just a very imperfect, normal woman. Normal in those other ways, just a regular sinner. And in some ways, maybe they expected it to be consistent, but God doesn't do that. It's by need, by his will. If I need something genuinely and I couldn't figure it out some temporal way, yes. But it isn't like I was a new age channeler and I could just, put myself into some state and make contact with some spirit out there. No. And I wouldn't, that isn't, God doesn't operate that way. But they didn't understand. I think they expected, like people like this just to have God on the end of a phone, dial God and he'll do what I want, or, make this or that happen. And no, and actually, I've come to understand that in many ways, as you go along in your spiritual life, less and less of those things happen. You don't need that kind of intervention. You get used to God's subtleties. This is for everyone. The closer you come to Jesus, the closer you come to God and the Holy Spirit, and you are interacting, you speak with them within your soul, you trust, you pray, you love and love and love. You fall in love, and you fall in love with his church. But I'm realizing not with the temple church. That's not his church. That's human's church. That's what human beings have done to his church. Have done to it, distorted it, twisted it, made it in their own image and likeness and what they want and what they think is good, and make it into another little organization. Most probably reminds me of a school district in a way, or a school, the setup. Have the principal, and I don't know, not quite like that, maybe more corporation, a small business. I mean, a small corporation, the diocese, and but they're not full into the corporation, so things don't necessarily run very smoothly that way. They might have an employee that needs to be axed, but they don't do it. Or send them off to therapy rather than out, knowing that it's not going to help. But things like that, it's sort of not a corporation, but also not fully as Christ Church would be, because it has so much human stuff added to it. So that's, but I mean, I had experienced I remember one was, oh no, you couldn't have had these as a Protestant. You didn't have experiences. And for a while I thought, what is this? How could that be? God is God is God. In fact, one man, I told him, I had a book of Protestants who had stigmata, and he didn't like that, and he asked to borrow the book, and I lent him to it, and he said he burned it. He never gave it back. And I also had given him some other books to read, Catholic ones that he kept, though he didn't want to give those back. So he wanted those to keep, but he was angry. No, a Protestant wouldn't have any spiritual experience. It's not often. In fact, there was one, I think, in Iowa who had the stigmata. But I didn't tell him anything of me. I don't do that with people. But I had read about this woman. This was maybe 20 years ago. And he was an older man and very, very pro-Catholic only. Very much that way. He was brought up that way. He was really about the only Catholic I met who was like that. Most Catholics they don't say negatives about Protestants. Protestants will say negatives about Catholic. So he was an unusual case as far as that goes. But they didn't, they don't think in terms of Protestants having spiritual experiences. But not many do. I didn't know of any at all. And the ministers, of course, but the priests know about it. So that was a great help to me. I did not feel nearly as alone. And I learned so much from reading their writings, these different people. And they weren't saints or anything. A lot of them were just people that had different experiences. But I appreciated that so much. So anyway, it's been an interesting experience, I guess I could say. But here's this. So I was in a Protestant church, and it was I don't know if it was a Sunday, I think, and maybe they were having communion. And of course, the communion's not the same at all with Protestant churches, not at all. So that's an experience. When I became Catholic and I had communion and Eucharist and at Mass and all, that was an entirely different experience. Marvelous experience. And I've mentioned before, which I think upset some people, but it's some people who said I was being a hypocrite, I guess that was the word. But I was just expressing my truthful experience of having communion. And it meant a lot to me in the Protestant church. I took it seriously, but it didn't have the effect as consecration does. I definitely sensed a tremendous power coming from the tabernacle as a Catholic. So there was something very strong and powerful of a spiritual nature in a Catholic Mass. In the mystic portal, I mean, there's just nothing like it. There's nothing like it from my experience. So, but here I was writing this. This was way back when I was Lutheran. In my journal, these are from my journal. As I prepare for communion, for taking and consuming that cup, I say as Jesus did, "Here I am, Lord. I have come to do your will, not as my will, but as your will be done." That is so simple, so true, and so painful to truly understand and accept at a heartfelt human level. Holiness comes with and after sanctification. Of Christ or in Christ. Of God we are sanctified. It all boils down to a giving over of ourselves to God and allowing ourselves to be permeated with Christ, a union. And this was also then, this was when I was still Protestant. And this is very personal, I'm sharing. Very personal, this part. I had been divorced for a while. My children were away. And that I was taken advantage of. So, well, anyway. Maundy, Thursday at communion, and it was the Protestant communion. Different, not a Catholic communion. So different, not a Catholic Mass, obviously. So totally different than what the Catholic Mass is. But it was Maundy, Thursday. They called it Maundy, Thursday. At communion, I prayed once more for forgiveness for my relationship with this person, this man. It remained a scar from a very ugly blemish during my soul's adolescent days. I was an adult woman. I had been married, divorced, and it's very sad. It was a psychologist. The minister had suggested I go to this therapist that he knew. He said, "Oh, I know him very well." Turns out he was a seducer. And I was very vulnerable at the time, having, having my heart crushed by a husband who I had no idea. I'd started to get I would bury God would try to show me, but I would bury it. But I knew of one woman, but I had buried that deeply, that my husband was with. I had no idea there were like 24 in our 10 years. Or more. It was terrible. And how he lied. I didn't know he was a sociopath. And you don't know, they lie about everything. Even he lied about where he'd been born, where he grew up. And how do you know? It's not like I would question his parents, who weren't the most comfortable people to be around. He didn't have a good relationship with his dad or his parents too much. But his dad was very, very grumpy person and sort of scary guy. Very bad temperament. But, and I was so young, I didn't realize that a kid could pick that up. But my husband was like that when I was first with him, married or dating even, and lots of fun, very charming, good personality, not all that great looking, and I actually thought, well, at least I won't have woman troubles. Oh, Well, I didn't know women either. Women will do whatever with anyone. But he was very charming, a real snake. So, and I didn't know it. And, but toward the end, I suspected this one woman, definitely. And then he admitted some things. So, and wanted to get divorced and stuff. After I was injured, after the accident, my back was hurt, then he did. But because it wasn't an intrigue anymore to fool me. I suppose he had some sense that it was more fun when I was healthy and not in agony and not having to wear a neck brace and a back brace and I was more pathetic, and it was more of a challenge and an intrigue for him to get away with all this stuff with a healthy person. That was like the ultimate win. That I think that's sort of how his mind worked as a good Dr. H, a good psychologist, helped me. But this other one, he was not a good person. And it turns out he got arrested and lost his license. And eventually, there were others. He seduced others too. But anyway, it remained a scar from a very ugly blemish. I had a most incredible dream early Sunday morning, Easter Sunday it was. This man was brought before many women whom he had offended. We all had a chance to tell him how he hurt us, how he took advantage of us. An angel of the Lord was there in this dream. And I still did not want to admit to him, to the angel, or to God. It's just, that was like the worst thing for me, to realize that I had fallen for that, and had gotten trapped, ensnared. And because they go over everything with you, your marriage and all that, to help me get over that divorce. And then he started putting he started, not the moves really, I would have noticed that, but just saying he could be a comfort to me and all. Worked it that way. Very insidious, very evil. But I didn't want to admit my sin. I was just so embarrassed by it too, because I should have known better. I was married to someone like that, a sociopath, because this guy lied too, it's turned out. But I didn't have to admit. God already knew. God was there too. It didn't need to be spoken. He said, now is your chance to let this man know how he hurt you and how you suffered. I burst into tears in this dream and cried out, but I was so weak. I was so weak. I was so weak. And I was still blaming myself. I was weak. And again, I was told, yes, but this man really did take advantage of you when you were vulnerable. I said, yes, he did. It was an awful thing, but I was equally weak. I awoke, not fully understanding the dream, but I now do. This is when I wrote this out. It was my admittance of what I did wrong before God, and God's understanding that I was also wronged. He forgave me. I don't ever again have to feel bad about it. Now that is so beautiful, so miraculous, so dramatic to me. Is it to others? Can others know how loved I felt that God would take Easter to actually redeem me? And my parents were there that weekend. I just wanted to tell someone. I never did tell anyone. This is the first time I've ever said anything about it. I wrote it in here, but I've never shared this with anyone. But I was so taken aback that it was Easter morning. I had that dream that and I had borne the weight of that for a long time. See, there was no confession in the Lutheran church, and I was so ashamed of it. I didn't even want to tell God about it. But then I realized in that dream, I realized, oh, he knew all about it. God did, and he kept trying to offer me chances to, say this person hurt me. But I kept trying to say, no, but it's my fault too. I was weak. I shouldn't have been that way. But God didn't, he said, no, he was so comforting. He knew if I had not been so vulnerable, I would not have allowed that to happen. Of all people, I wouldn't have, from what had happened to me with my husband. So, and it wasn't a frequent thing or anything. It was, I think, offended, once or twice. But it was, but that God would use Easter morning for that redemption. And it was so uplifting. I felt so freed from all that guilt and shame. So, that's how I know, and that's how I knew I can tell God anything. He knows. I can tell him, and I can tell him my faults and how sorry I am, and he'll forgive me. So like now, I don't have to drive and stand in the confession line. I know, God hears us. He forgives us. He knows already. And if it's something really awful and he knows that we're having trouble getting it out, he'll do something to help us get it out to him. So that we won't, I was afraid, I was ashamed. I was ashamed before God. So that he had to come to me, in this dream on Easter morning. He chose Easter morning to redeem me because he knew I would make that connection about how extra wonderful it was. Resurrected. So this is not of me, it is of God, in whom I abide in Jesus Christ. That's how I concluded writing about it. This is not of me, it is of God, in whom I abide in Jesus Christ. I guess I thought no one would believe it, that this dream and what God said, and how first, the angel of the Lord, and then God started speaking, and Easter morning. So then, this was a little bit later. Then when God showed me about not having a husband. See, I didn't want to have to admit that to him. I missed not having a husband. I was shown at an eye-level perspective the garden of roses. My rose had buds lower down and around it. There were many other roses in the background, with 2 blooms and buds. They were married men. They had 2 blooms. Mine was a single. And I had these buds down around my lower stem, my children, And I was able to enjoy their fragrance. But the other blooms were not mine to have. It was delightful, like reading an 18th or 19th century novel. The innuendo of knowing through a word, a glance, a smile, an act of kindness, that there are men who love me very much, but cannot express it due to their real life commitments. As it should be, as it need be. My Maker is my husband. So that was an awesome thing, because there would be lovely married men with their wives, and oh, even one of them, my mom said, oh, you would have been perfect with him, you know. And of course, he was married and had children and all. And I was not, you know, and she would never have condoned anything like that. But she was just sort of looking around. We were at a gathering, and I had dated some single men. Oh my goodness. Oh, and finally, Dr. H, bless his heart, I was like in my mid 30s then, mid to later 30s. Well, no, after no, 36 was when I had the surgery, so that cut off dating. So I was mid early to mid like between 30, 34, 35, 36, that age range, and and he says, I hate to tell you, he says, but the men in your age range, he says, there's a reason why they're divorced. So he says, you know, unless there'd be some wonderful widower, but he says that, you know, they usually don't die young like that, and then they already know someone, or, you know, or introduced by a friend or a relative or something to someone else. But uh so and then when God made it very clear to me that you know, being maimed and all. And I was just done dating anyway. Just, oh, what I went through. Mm. I was date raped from one of them. It wasn't a good thing. You know, um, it's just not worth it. I just stopped. I just stopped dating. My mom so hoped, and I had hoped I could, you know, meet a wonderful man and remarry. But that was before I understood that, before I was told, you know, to read Isaiah 54, you know, that my Jesus is my husband, he is my spouse, your maker is your husband, and the father of my children. And so I knew that then. And then the surgery and all, and I was so maimed, total, you know, really, my spine, the pain was so terrible. From then on, lost my career and all. I knew that God did not want that at all, and he was making sure. But even after that, though, it took until I was 44 years old for me to totally be rid of the uh, thinking, well, maybe I could still have a husband, an earthly husband. You know, how serious is God about this? You know, you know, could I have both? You know, no. But this was a beautiful dream, because, uh, you know, the really nice men who were loyal and loved their wives, they could say a nice word to me or anything, and or um, just a smile or some nice act of kindness, um, and I could trust that they weren't going to put any moves on me, and um, but that there was love there for me, a holy kind of love, not anything that was, you know, it was as it should be, as it needed to be. They couldn't express love because of their real life commitments, but they wouldn't have. It, you know, they were honorable men, and I so appreciated that. And I appreciated the dream when God pointed this out to me, that to notice the ones that did that, and to appreciate that was the love, and to appreciate that I had someone I could even talk to a little bit. You know, because when you're single, and if you don't date, you don't have any male conversations anymore. It's sort of one-sided, and I miss that. It's nice to have just a nice conversation or interaction with another mindset than female mindset. So, I mean, I love females too. I love women. I love men in friendships, but definitely I'm heterosexual, as far I am not lesbian, but as far as I enjoy women, I enjoy men, but not. I'm married. I'm very married to Jesus, and know it, and I proved it to him. I didn't even realize how I had been so cured when I was 44, so, or maybe it was 45, so cured of even any thought of marrying a humanoid. I called them humanoids, um, because I just became very satisfied with God in all aspects. He really became my husband, and he still is, and I have him forever. See, I don't have to go through my husband passing away or anything, or leaving me. Nothing like that. And he doesn't argue with me, really. He lets me know when I do things wrong. Like last night, I took that video off, put it under some other category that it isn't, because I got too personal in my criticisms. So I write as one who is nothing. The human emptiness I feel is contrasted so heavily with spiritual fullness. And it is perhaps good and right that I have no one with whom to speak of these things. This was back when I was Protestant. For they are merely my destiny. The physical pain continues to jab and poke me along the path to joy, love, and wisdom. Yet I continue to spiritually stumble, drag my feet, stub my toe as I half walk, half run along. Here was another thing. Seeing, this was before too. You get repeated showings of things you're to do. Seeing volumes to be read is a directive to me. I had it like, I didn't know what it was called in any of these terms, but it was a waking vision. I had just a quick vision of seeing volumes in my inner sight that I was to read. It was a directive to me. I knew that. For I have found solace in heroic writers of the faith, as well as I enjoyed Thomas Merton. I was reading his early books. It was before anything was known of his double life going on. And that was good, because at least it introduced me. He had a great mind, and he could write spiritually well. He just wasn't living it, which can happen, And it wasn't just a happen chance thing. It wasn't just a sin that he, begged forgiveness and changed his life. He kept on, and God took him out when he was 58 because he just kept messing up. So, which is sad, but I'm deeply grateful and appreciative that I can communicate through reading and listening to the written word of others who are inspired by Christ in other times and other places. Christ explains away trifling mysteries, the conscious knockings, movements, voice, and visions of God. I would get knockings. I still do sometimes, but not as much. I think the more we grow in God, we don't need these signals. I used to get what I call signal graces. I could be praying and some insight with that, like that one time, because that was immense when the transformer blew out. But other times, like I've had it happen in this room, but it's been maybe 3 or 4 years since it's happened. But I could be praying or something in my forehead facing out this way or that way, and there'd be a huge pop come out of the wall right directly across from where, or up there, or in one house I had early on, way back, the smoke detector would go off down the hall. My head would be this way and the detector would be out down the hall up in the ceiling, and it would just go off from the intensity of the thought of the prayer, the energy. So prayer and communication with God is very powerful. It's an energy, and it can cause movement in walls. It can cause things to break. One time, one of these big lemonade drink containers, it shattered. I had walked into a room. It was before I had when my back was really, really bad one time. Hadn't had the surgery yet. But I had a babysitter taking care of the children because I had to be in bed. And I didn't even know I was going to have a surgery. In fact, it was my son's birthday. It was the 13th of April. He was 4 that day. And I hired a teenager babysitter that they loved because I had a birthday party planned for the little guy. And my eldest was 11, 10. Not even 11 yet, 10. And the next one down was 8, going on 9. And they were going to have to run this birthday prep. I knew that wouldn't work. I needed an adult there. But his sisters wanted to help. They did a lot, taking care of their little brother and, having his birthday party set up. I hired this 19 or 20-year-old babysitter girl that they really liked. And she handled things, but she was out by the kitchen counter getting the drink ready in the big container, lemonade or something they were having. And I made it out from the bedroom. And when I entered the little family room, right across from where my lumbar was on fire, it blew out the side of that drink container, and everything just went all over out this opening that was the shape of a vertebrae disc, of a vertebrae. It was the shape of a vertebrae in the side of that. And by then I was getting used to weird things happening. And I knew that was because I was standing across from it about 12 feet. And boom, that shape of a disc just blew out of that glass drink container. It's like a 2-gallon one, a big tall one, had the spigot at the bottom. And it was just the shape of a spine vertebrae. And it was down low on the jar, but it was straight across from mine. One of mine that was so painful and messed up. So that was really quite amazing. That was like a signal grace. It was a signal, a sign of pain, but also the power of an energy of suffering. So those of you who suffer, and all of you will, and I think maybe Tom has stopped watching because of things I've said that he didn't like, which is, I understand, go ahead. When I say things, because God has me progressing, I'm progressing. And Christopher left a comment today that really helped me, because he had gone back a year or two to a video I had done about in Lent, and I was doing Cassian then, and lessons from Cassian, or stages during Lent, lessons, I guess I called it, and lesson 7. He says, I like this one, so I went back and listened to it. And I had totally forgotten. I'm in the present moment. The pain is so bad, I'm lucky to remember while I'm in it. Sometimes I don't. So I don't even remember often what I said in a video after it's done. Honestly, this pain is just, it's powerful. It's powerful. But how wonderful to exist in the present moment. I'm learning to enjoy it. So, except missing my kidney appointment. But I'll get there Wednesday. I've got it written down. Told my neighbor. So, but Wednesday morning, 9:35, I gotta be there. And this is Monday evening. Oh, keep it straight. But yeah, so it was but Cassian in this was talking about detaching, getting cut out things that you are attached to. Get rid of what your attachments are. Get rid of what is distracting you from the spiritual life. That was Cassian's message in this video, because I listened to it today while I was doing some caulking. And to remember, what it was. And I realized it was another message to me. I so thank Christopher for just saying how he liked that, went back to it for two reasons. One is to get my content back on track. But and that will happen because of what the content of Cassian was. Stop the distractions. Whatever is distracting, get rid of it. So I have to say goodbye to the temporal Catholic world. I have to say goodbye to it. Every time it gurgles up, I find myself back at the nets trying to help people escape and get out of the entangling nets of the temporal world. Of the humans have made up these things and created these traditions that some are good and helpful, but they all run their course. The best is what Christ has for us. And he eventually moves us into the world of spirit, because that's what we are. Our being is spirit. The only thing of us that's not is our physical body, is not spirit. But God's love courses through us infinitely. And we will be spirit when we die. So especially someone like me who could go any minute. We never know what'll happen. Could get septic shock in a hurry or something. Maybe that's why they want me in there so fast with my kidneys or something. Make sure I don't have an infection, maybe. I don't know, but because they were out like 2 months for normal, but the one lady, how she got me in was supposed to have been today, was she saw my record. And then the one today calling, oh, we've got your blood test, you've got to be seen. Can you be here Wednesday morning? We'll make an opening. You've got to be seen. Your numbers are high or whatever. So, yeah. So, I can't be dawdling around in the temporal church. There's nothing there for me except irritant. I get irritated and frustrated beyond all telling. I didn't even post the long video that I really got into it. And I have good points I make, there's no doubt of reality, but temporal Catholics don't want to hear it. Not at all. And I don't blame them. If I had been born, that's what I would know. It's ingrained, like the Holy Father. And they don't even look at them realistically. And they don't compare, like, well, if that's the leader of the church, shouldn't they be more like Peter, And then there was more today in the news, getting really into politics. So I've got to kiss it goodbye. Kiss it goodbye. And that will help me get back into better content in what I'm sharing. Because I get drawn off into the frustration, and then I mouth off, and then God has to correct me, because then I'm getting into the judgment. I'm getting nasty and not treating others well. Most normal people don't want to be treated like I treat others, but I've been treated like that, and I take it. And I always find something of worth in it. Like I've already found out how negative I am. My daughters kept saying I was the most negative person in the world. The one that she'd ever been around, and didn't want to be around me. And And then this one would say, yes, well, you are negative. And then a month or two ago, I realized, yeah, I am. And I'm especially when something triggers me of the temporal Catholic world. I don't even want to call it the temporal Catholic Church, because it's not. It's the temporal Catholic world. I don't want to categorize it as church, because that is an offense against Christ, because it's Christ's church. He's the head. He's the head. And we are the body. All of us sinners, including me and my sins, my flipping off my mouth. So, but that's the church. And it's not the human stuff, the human made up stuff. It's, we have to sort of discern. And the stuff that's good, like Lent, I was explaining this to my niece. Yes, Jesus didn't say in scripture, celebrate Lent. But I said, but it's a wonderful practice. So why not? Why not celebrate Lent and learn and grow and let God guide us through? And he shows us things we need to know. This is part of my Lent, is going back through some of my history of suffering and other things, and of God's gifts to me way back, that I can be so thankful for. It's showing me his pure love, how much he loves. And see, and I wasn't being pure love, even toward the human of the Pope. And I can love the human of that Pope. I can love him so much. But the aspects of it that trigger me, that, people, that and it isn't his fault, happened Middle Ages or Renaissance, where it's an imitation of society, when they had kings as rulers over a country. And so, the Vatican became a city-state then. They made it into that. And he's the king of that, the leader of that city-state. See, that's just all made up. And he wears these clothes that I'm surprised. I thought, oh boy, what he was doing in South America was so good. And his humility as a priest there, working with the poor, and he became a bishop, and but still, stayed there. Could have gone other places, could have been transferred in his religious order to other places, but no, he wanted to stay working with them. And I just admire that so much. But he's gotten really into the traditional role. And he's the king. He could say, I'm not going to wear this stuff. Get me a regular chair. Get me a folding chair, or any number of things. But he's picking another bone. He has another bone to pick now. It's in the news. So I thought, don't watch the news, the temporal world news. And especially not temporal Catholic stuff in the temporal world. It's not where God wants me. It's not where a hermit needs to be. I'm to be, as Cassian pointed out, getting rid of anything that distracts me. Attachments to distractions. To rid them out. So it's goodbye temporal Catholic world. And even temporal Catholic Church. Because in just another form, I was back at the nets trying to open them up. To get people out. Be aware. Notice this. This isn't not right. This isn't spiritual. The head, Peter should be very spiritual, evangelizing. not politicking, not making points, not taking on the world leader, not gonna win. Sorry. Just he's not up for it. He's not experienced in it. It's been this president's world. He's been through the battles with business and all. But he cares. He really cares. And now it's over the war and wanting negotiations. And I was reading comments, and people were saying, doesn't this Pope listen to the news or read it? They've tried and tried negotiations. And other people, doesn't he care about the Iranians' freedom, especially the women who have been held down? And they used to, I remember when I was in elementary school, the high school, my eldest sister, a guy a year older, she was a sophomore, he was a junior, Casimir Fatima from Persia. Iran was called Persia then. And he was an exchange student for a year in our town. Oh my goodness, every girl's heartthrob. He was the nicest young man. And of course, the most unusual of exchange students we had thus far. Most, were from either France or Spain or Germany. And here he came from Persia. And he was gorgeous. Oh, my sister just thought he was great. But she had a boyfriend, but we were all in a swoon because my neighbor friend, Peggy's older sister, she went to a dance with him. And that was the big thing. We were all excited about that because she got to have a date with Casimir Fatima. And so he was so nice and so well spoke, so educated. But see, things have changed. That was in 65, 64. Yeah, 63, 62 it would have been, 1962. My sister was a sophomore. It's 1962. And things really changed over there. So they don't, the women don't get the education that they used to. They're oppressed. They have protests. He took out, 32,000 people were killed or something. It was a horrific amount. It was a massacre of protesters that Ayatollah had killed. So I thought, Pope Leo, don't you care about these people? In reading the news, people were commenting on it and making derisive comments then about Catholics and about, where'd they get this guy? And then a lot of Catholics were on the comments. I think it was Forbes magazine or something online. I thought we had a good one this time, but no, we don't. He's worse than the last, When are we going to get a good one? Probably never will. It was just so awful. And I thought, wow, I've got lots of praying to do for the church and for the people in the church, because they're recognizing a lot of people are. Then others were making really rather lame excuses for him, which anyone with wits can see through. He didn't know. He hadn't kept up with the news. Either that or he has this bugaboo with this president. In fact, somebody brought it up, does he think he's going to win taking on this leader, government leader, when he's out of a priest or a bishop and has this little tiny city-state in Rome? Is he up for this? Somebody who's managing the United States, doesn't he realize that he's not, he's not a match, not an equal match? But maybe he does think he can, go toe to toe and win. But it stirs up division in the church. On the comments, it was about split. I could tell, who was for and who was against. And people were saying, and I'm Catholic, and I feel this way, and I do not like that. And this guy's bad, And how was it we got him? So, well, because he was elected. And maybe the ones who elected him thought he would be better. I don't know, or different. But he is, he is as he is. And they were complaining about how political he was. Same stuff I was yapping about. But it's a distraction for me from my spiritual life, and it's a distraction for everybody else. Either way it goes. If you think it's great what he's saying, and don't get it that he didn't even read or hear the news, didn't keep up with the fact that there have been attempted negotiations that were kept being refused, and negotiations in the past that would always be broken, that did that, done that, tried that, didn't work. Presidents have tried for years with Iran. And but where was he? Well, he was in South America. He wasn't around to be in on the news of what's going on in this country and Iran. But he's weighing in, see. So it's these people are divided, and it wasn't pretty. In fact, it got so nasty. One site, the Vatican shut down the comment section because people were going at it back and forth, pro and con, for and against. And I'm going to pray that he wises up. I'm going to pray for wisdom for him, and that he stay in his lane. Because that's basically what Cassian's message, when I listened back to that video that Christopher mentioned that he liked from a couple of years ago on the 7th lesson of Lent or something. I've got to stay in my lane, my hermit lane, and my spiritual life lane. Or my videos, what I say is going to be just garbage. Too, I'm creating a net, a distraction by all that temporal Catholic world stuff, and in iffy territory too, with not sounding as if I have compassion at all, and I do for him, I do for this Pope. I'm a little concerned that there's something in him, ego-wise, that he sort of wants to take on Trump. Trump can be like that. He can be a real sort of a red flag for bulls. He's sort of a bull that, people want to try to take him on, especially if they disagree. If they are very politically on opposite side, they love to think that they can get some jabs in, fence with them, and win. And it's really not what a pope should be doing, I don't think, but I'm not a pope, nor would I be. And I don't know if Jesus had that in mind for Peter. I don't think so. He said, get out there, take your sandals, wear your tunic, don't take extra, take enough to eat for the day, and God will provide, kind of thing. Go out and tell the whole world, spread the good news. Go to all the world. Win souls. And this isn't winning souls, what Leo's doing. Sadly, not based on the comment section. It was getting ugly, divisive, So I've got praying to do on that, but I've got to cut out all the distractions. That's why I have to say goodbye to it. Say goodbye to the temporal church once and for all. God has had me at this point so many times. Goodbye, temporal Catholic Church, for me, and goodbye, temporal Catholic world. It's an absolute no think, no go. Pray for, but I'm going to pray for the church, Christ as head, and all of us as the body, all of Christ's followers and believers, and all people who love God. Not just Catholics, all who love God can be in his body. And I'll pray that everybody is in his body. I sort of suspect that Christ as spirit, he wants that anyway. He loves everyone. Jesus loves everyone, not just certain ones. He loved the ones, the Syrophoenician woman, and he loved the woman that, maybe it was the same, there were two different times, the woman at the well, the woman who said, that even the dogs get the scraps from the master's table, and as I know I'm not of your background, not of your country, but please, heal my daughter, and he did, of course. He loves everyone. He's God. So it isn't, he loves the Iranians, the Muslims. He loves everyone. Jesus does, and God does, and Holy Spirit. And we are too also. That's how I can love Leo. It's his actions are sort of distress me a little bit, because it's causing consternation out there. And I'm an either or. I try not to get involved in one way or another. I do sort of think, this is how I view politics. This president was voted in. I think just wait and see. I don't know him personally, so I'm not going to hate him. And I pray for him and give him a chance. See what happens. Hope he does well. And the same with Pope Leo. I hope he does well. So it's, and I need to stay in my lane, out of politics, and rid out what will distract me, be a distraction from the spiritual life, from the Holy Spirit that's in me. Don't want to be distracted from the Holy Spirit and from learning pure love and being out in the desert. God sent me out in the desert. I'm a hermit. I'm an authentic early century hermit. So I have no business judging or getting involved in politics or what's going on in Rome or anywhere except my cell. It seems maybe narrow-minded, but then when I look at this stuff and I realize how God's everywhere and he takes care of me, takes care of you. So now I know that it is not of my weakness of faith, nor of my great neediness, of which both are mine, but the conscious recognition of a contemplative soul to the presence and reality of God in my earth life. It's as simple as that. And this is not rare among the spiritual. To have a conscious recognition of other spiritual souls. Many of you, I say everybody of you, who leaves comments or reads this, and especially those who leave comments and I read, I have that sense that I am among the spiritual. And what a gift God has given me to you guys. Because I needed to be among you and to learn from you. The conscious recognition of a contemplative soul to the presence and reality of God in my earth life. It's as simple as that, and is not rare among the spiritual. We all are spiritual. But how I have been spiritually humbled, for when I feel my deepest, have my greatest understandings of the spiritual and of God, I am rendered dumb to verbalize the revelations. I'm sure this is no mistake. The wiser in the interior, the dumber on the exterior. That is what makes humility to man and before God. The latter being far more the painful, causing frustration like I've never felt nor experienced. And that's to be humble before God. That's the far more difficult, far more painful, is to be humble to man, a humble person before God. And to learn, be wiser in the interior, dumber on the exterior. And I haven't learned that. I need to learn that. To not show my hand, especially on exterior things, like I was doing in the videos that I took down, the video. Increasingly so, my life is a prayer. It is a constant going in and then out, a weaving motion of the depths of my soul and the activity of conscious life, here and now. The spirit shuttling the thread in and out, and if left to its endless spontaneity and energy, can weave indeed a strong, balanced, and beautiful beyond words tapestry of a life in which Jesus the Christ is living in and through the Spirit. So give the Holy Trinity a fair chance. Let the Spirit weave your tapestry, your very own tapestry, beautiful beyond words, strong, balanced, a tapestry of a life in which Jesus the Christ is living in and through the Spirit. That's for every one of us. All of this is. Your life to be a prayer, my life to be a prayer. It is a prayer. It is a constant going in and then out, a weaving motion of the depths of your soul and the activity of conscious life, back and forth and back and forth. Conscious life in the soul, weaving. And remember, the pure love is flowing infinitely through your body and through your soul itself. This figure, tube 8, with love coursing through. All the while, this tapestry of your life is being woven, beautiful beyond words. And that is, the tapestry is of your life in which Jesus the Christ is living in and through the Spirit. That's your tapestry. So think of that image for yourselves, because it's the truth. And that's the weaving in and out is the action part and the inner spirit part. Because you are an active, you have a body of matter that is active now, and a spirit within your soul. Your soul is spirit. And then we leave the tapestry here when we die. But the soul, and with all the memories of your life here, go with you. Your memory will go with you. And you will be so startled by how glorious it is, you may forget initially, but it'll come back. You'll have your memory, your understanding, your ability to see images, and your mind. I mentioned understanding your emotions, your inner senses, all of your inner senses. You'll see, you'll hear, you'll breathe, smell, touch. You'll feel. I could feel the cool air, feel it, but I had no body. So it's just another dimension. We're in another dimension, and so anyway, now this is. I think I'll just do a couple more. We'll see. But how comforting it is to be able to put word and validity to that which I have experienced through God's gift of grace, and only and completely a gift from Him. How much more powerful is the gift now that I know the experience first, and next the explanation, the label, the definition. So it must be with sin. First the experience, and then the law defining it, and then the forgiving freedom from the confines and conviction of the definition. So I liked that. I thought that was good. So after this labeling and defining a gift of grace, what next? A freedom from the definition? Back to the experience? No. On to a greater union after other gifts. I think so. I don't really know. I can make guesses, but I am told always to expect the unexpected. This is faith in the darkness. Expect the unexpected. That's faith. That's and we can and this was actually a correct guess. We go on to a greater union after more and more and more gifts, graces, and that's of the learning of pure love. We get opportunities. And yeah, I sort of messed up. Yeah, I'm big time last couple of days. Today a little bit, but what was it? Sunday, really bad. I was a mess. I was a wreck on Sunday. Oh yeah, that was just yesterday. So this Monday. So, and I started, when I looked at the news and saw more issues coming out of the vacuum, then I got triggered again. See, so I've got to, if I cannot stop that of my will, I need to just not see. I need to detach and get rid of the distractions, which is looking at that stuff in the news. I can probably keep up because I like to pray for the soldiers and pray for the people in Iran. I like to pray for them, for their safety, their well-being, and their freedom. And I'm praying for their next government in advance. Please, please, don't get yourself in another bad one. Where you're going to be just no freedom anymore. Captives, prisoners to someone, a dictator, like Father Vincent has in Nigeria. So even though he's elected, he fixes the election, the president they have. It's a known thing. So anyway, it's to expect the unexpected. We can think of it as faith in the darkness. Then I said, why didn't I suspect that a spiritual director could be a writer? Well, they can be. There's books written by spiritual directors, older books that are really excellent. And then to recognize that the director with a capital D is Jesus Christ, who is mentor to whoever's writing the books of direction. You know, if my spiritual Da had written a book, well, who's his director? It's Jesus Christ. So this is a form of life together, worshiping God together. When we read a book by some great spiritual person who can direct, can help us learn and grow, but also got direction from God and gets direction from God, whether he's on earth still. I just read the ones that are long since dead to make sure I don't want to end up with one that I'm following along and then they go off kilter because they're still alive, and then I find out that they were double lifers, or false people. But so the ones that are a couple centuries old or more, or further back, even 1800 years ago, desert fathers or things, or some of the early church fathers, and desert mothers too, very much so. I can feel more assured that after all these years, whatever was icky, if there was something icky, would have come to the surface by then. And it usually does after 100 or so years. So I don't usually read people who are current. Just because they might be great, I figure, well, they're good. The people in the next couple 100 years can really feel safe and secure reading them. I'll stick with the ones that are already dead and tried and true. But the thing is to realize, well, Jesus Christ is the director. But by reading someone else who had Jesus Christ as director also, it's 2 or 3 are gathered together then. It's myself, the writer, and Jesus. Or the writer often will reference other great writers, have quotes by them or sections of writing, and then it's pretty soon it's a small congregation that I'm together with, having this discussion and learning from them, and also learning from Jesus Christ myself, who's directing me too. So it's very beautiful. It's worshiping. This is a form of life together. And the L and the T were capitalized. Life together. Worshiping God together. This is the last one. Where is charity? Do I possess charity? No. But I pray that charity possesses me. Like the consuming fire of God, I am still too selfish, too enraptured, even admiring yet the words that flow out as if they are me and not him. Well, I'm over that. I know, just reading this, I know that I wasn't writing that. I don't think myself, my own self, doesn't come up with these things, like just writing, just flows out. Same with the poems I've shared. So that it's of God, and God's that way with anyone. Well, it depends though. I mean, some people, he knows they love to write, like I've always loved to write since a little kid. And so he knows I do. So he talks to me and lets me write. Others, he works with you in other ways. Koine is a very talented woodworker. Carol is a fine artist. So he talks to them through their work, through the God grants success to the work of their hands, as the psalmist says. God grants success to the work of my hands. I pray that for people like that, for Carol and Koine and many of you. Others of you are more like me, and God works with you in those ways, or are far beyond and don't have your spiritual life is blooming of profundity of God. Just within your soul is expanded in love and communication of purity of love. and positivity of love. So it's just a most beautiful flower garden soul, which is more pure because it's not coming out in something tangible even, or temporal. It's a direct connection. So God does this with everyone on whatever is your interest, or what you're drawn to, or even what you're doing. If you garden or whatever, or musical instruments, or that's God speaking through you, utilizing you, himself, his spirit. His spirit is flowing in an extra way. So, all right, the end of my talk. Very long one. Don't even know what to call it. Not even sure what all I talked about. Just a lot of stuff, I guess. I'll have to ask for a title for this video. God bless his real presence in us. God bless his pure love in us. Because he does have his pure love in us. It's just a matter of us connecting with it, of recognizing it and utilizing it. Because the Trinity dwells within us. And God is pure love. So it's in us. It's just a matter of us, the awareness. And like Cassian said, get rid of the distractions. Get rid of the distractions to our spiritual growth. That was lesson 7 of Lent or something with Cassian a couple years ago about this time, I guess. Well, you see, oh no, he left a comment back in that video. But I benefited from listening to it. And again, thank you, Christopher, for that, for reminding me. Remind. That's my middle name now. Remind. Have a beautiful day or night, whatever you're in. Gotta find the little thing to turn this off.